Game loaded.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Lessons Learned with your host Rafael Pinheiro. Now we move to the next chapter in the failure and ultimate death of Mass Effect. That's right, we're going to talk about the Mass Effect 3 ending. But I'm going to try to concentrate not on the ending itself, although I will make comments about it. Instead, I will focus on how Electronic Arts and BioWare dealt with the quote-unquote controversy surrounding the ending. There's two major schools of thought about the ending. The first school, which I am part of, believed that the ending was badly written, that it was illogical, did not conform to the existing plot and or setting of the game. It had little foundation in the lore of Mass Effect. It seemed to come out of nowhere. The second school can be called the school of closure. People who, what they really wanted at the ending, aside from a sort of neat package that made everything come together, was to see what happened to their characters after the events of the battle for Earth. Now, the way BioWare dealt with this was very interesting. They felt that the way to deal with the first group is to explain to them the artistic brilliance of the ending. That's right, the problem, as they saw it, was not that there was anything wrong with the ending that was badly written, it was that we didn't understand what they were trying to do. The extended cut and the Leviathan DLC were designed to explain to us why things happened the way they happened. Problem was that what happened was that they doubled down on the fallacies and assumptions in the ending instead of actually fixing it. Perhaps it was too late, perhaps it was impossible to fix it. Probably that was one of the reasons why they did that, but still that doubling down didn't help. And then they would take further steps to alienate and isolate the people in the first school of fans by essentially introducing elements in the extended cut and in the Citadel DLC that mocked the retake movement and mocked the idea that there was anything wrong with the ending. When it came to the second group, BioWare found it much easier to placate them. Through the extended cut, they added scenes where you could see what happens to your followers and your teammates. And of course, the entirety of the Citadel DLC was designed as a fan service pack. A giant $10+ fan job to that group. But if you look at the Citadel DLC, its plot, the plot that wraps around all this fan service, it's also extremely poor. It's just a way to deliver these out-of-character moments and hit-and-miss funny lines that makes, or at least they were designed to make us feel better about the whole situation. Faced with a divided fandom and a controversial ending, the designers of Mass Effect now face a prospect that, just like what happened with Dragon Age, the entire IP could collapse. So they would do what they did with Dragon Age. They would roll the die and hope that they scored a nat 20. As we know, that's not what happened. The way that Casey Hudson, the lead designer in the Mass Effect Trilogy, and now the first of two lead designers in Mass Effect Andromeda, was to go to the fans again, to the forums, and ask what they wanted to do. He was looking for a way to achieve three things. One, expand the player base of the IP, because it's a AAA game, and success comes from the more people that play, the more people buy, and the better you do. Two, bring back the people who had been pushed away by the whole ending kerfuffle. and 3, maintain the loyalty of the existing fanbase, those that stuck with BioWare and Mass Effect through thick and thin. They failed. I'm using that word a lot because that's the word that fits. They only managed 1 out of 3. They did not bring new players into the base for the most part. They certainly did not placate players like me who just didn't see the point of the new game. They only managed to keep the player base that stuck with them since the ending of the last game. The decisions that they made, for example, trying to ground the actions and the story of Mass Effect Andromeda within the timeline of the original Mass Effect, even though most of, not all, the action of Andromeda takes part 600 years and a galaxy away from the events of the Milky Way, plus trying to appeal to shippers. And by the way, I'm not going to blame the shippers for this. I mean, that's something that has always been in BioWare products since all the way, at least back to Baldur's Gate. You know, romances and the character banter and all that. And they in fact improve on that throughout the games. Meant that for people like me who had other interests, such as, you know, expansions to the lore or bringing new lore, new ideas, and new concepts, simply were not there. Mind you, Andromeda has some improvements in gameplay, but the combination of janky animations, which could not be patched, the decision to have a secondary studio, in this case BioWare Montreal, who had no experience making this time of games. They only made DLC for games like Mass Effect, and the loss of 2 out of the 5 years of development, and with it millions of dollars, crippled Andromeda from the get-go. The expectations for Andromeda were conversely both in-house too high and in the audience too low. There were people who were too disappointed, and there was no real fix for that. So Andromeda was already hobbled from the beginning. It would be very difficult for Andromeda to get over this. Andromeda also shows the sort of halfway measures that has plagued not only Mass Effect but BioWare for a very long time. I said in another video that BioWare designers find it very difficult to admit that they made a mistake and to say that they're sorry. They always try to justify their design decisions. They cannot, for some reason, make a clean break. Had Andromeda, for example, being a completely new game, right? Thematically linked to Mass Effect, still being sort of the themes, ideas, and perhaps even the look of the game would have been Mass Effect, but it being a truly complete new game with little or no reference to the games of the past, I think that would have attracted new players who never got into the original Mass Effect games. It might have angered some of the existing player base. They might have wanted to know what happened to Shepard and what happened to the Milky Way, but this game was not set in the Milky Way. It would have pleased lore mongers like myself, who are still scratching their heads of how you can send a ship across the void of space without any mass relays and without the crew being fried alive inside or cooked inside the ship due to static buildup from the ESO cores. There's a lot of decisions that were made trying to work around the problems of the Mass Effect 3 ending, and none of them seem to have worked. Now, the final problem, of course, is that Mass Effect Andromeda is a AAA game, published by a AAA company. And we are now in a situation where AAA companies expect every game to outsell the last one. They also expect the games to be bigger as well. They want almost every game has to be an open world game or a MOBA or a similar supersized game for the purpose of selling as many microtransactions, DLC, season passes, and the like to the players. But by isolating a significant portion of the fan base, and by failing to bring new players and fold them into the fan base of Mass Effect, it meant that while the game itself didn't sell badly, it did not have the install base and the concurrent players on multiplayer to justify the continued support from Electronic Arts. And now we know, of course, that BioWare Montreal did no longer exist. It was folded into EA Motive, and that as of patch 1.10, the single player will no longer be supported. And talking about patch 1.10, the idea of rushing the game and having to rely on patching to sort of finish it up was also a problem that is not unique to Andromeda or the Mass Effect series. Mass Effect series has had its share of bugs and glitches, but one that increasingly consumers are getting tired to deal with, especially when there were so high expectations of quality, not only narrative but also in gameplay as well. Simply put, Andromeda was supposed to serve a lot of people, make everybody happy, and it made too few people happy. The fan base has shrunken to the point where it could no longer, at least in the eyes of Electronic Arts, support the game, and therefore they pull the plug. Question now is, could anyone, BioWare, Electronic Arts, or any major AAA company, make another attempt at a Mass Effect style trilogy? Is it possible to create a grand story in such a manner? Well, that is a discussion for the next episode. And it is both a complex question that may not have an exact answer. But for now, if you like this or any video on my channel, please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you when I see you. Good night.